Welcome to the NFL Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. And we are looking at NFL play-up props in week 11, man. We are rolling along in this NFL season. We are going to be looking at a couple. We got 6 total, actually, I should say, and a little bonus pick for you today as well with these play-up props on this nice slate for Sunday. Do you want to make sure to subscribe to that page? We're bringing this to you each and every week with the NFL play-up props videos. Also should mention there's plenty of other great content for the NFL each and every week on the YouTube channel. So definitely want to make sure to subscribe to that page and not miss out on any of this stuff. Came back down to earth a little bit, got to be honest. 2-4 between the kids last week. Had a really sizzling streak of it going at least 500 for the majority of this season. So we're still up. Nate doing the bulk of the heavy lifting here. My man has been fire this season. So without further ado, let's toss it to you for your first pick, my guy.
Yeah, took Garrett Wilson, and the Jets were just a complete disaster. Although
I think
he would have got his prop if Sean Murphy Bunting didn't blatantly pull him down on the first target, I guess, and then get benched the rest of the game. But yeah, shout out the Cardinals. They are looking fire.
Yeah, what?
Yes, moving on. Week 11, I really like Nick Chubb to come out of the bye week strong here. And so 60.5 rushing yards. I think you put half your unit on that and then put the other half on him to score a touchdown and get 60, because this New Orleans defense, I am not buying into it. That's plus 215 at DraftKings is where I got that at, by the way, the parlay. I'm not buying it. I mean, it was the dead cat bounce last week. They came out on fire. Rizzy, changed the D-line coach, and they were very aggressive. They got to Kirk Cousins for 3 sacks. They'll probably be very aggressive again, but the Browns can just offset that by being like, we are getting back to our identity. We have Chubb now. He can ramp up after this bye week. They also have Wyatt Teller, Joel Bitonio, multiple offensive linemen who are out and either came back right before the bye or, they needed this bye as well. And you're looking at Chubb. Yeah, he didn't find the end zone against the Chargers and Ravens. Those teams have allowed 1 touchdown on the ground between them in 6 games. Like, they are 2 of the best, absolute best at limiting you from scoring. Now they face maybe the worst. I mean, the Saints are allowing 1.5 rushing touchdowns per game. At home, they're allowing 182 rush yards and 6.2 yards per carry. Pete Werner, their linebacker, still likely out. They might get Kool-Aid McKinstry back, though, in the secondary, which, makes it easier for the Browns to say, let's just run this thing. And hopefully they do that anyway, because you got to hide Jameis Winston a little bit. Like, you do not want him throwing the ball into the chest of defenders with the honey badger back there, right? You got to expect a conservative approach here from Stefanski coming out of the bye and saying, let's get back to our identity. It's been Chubb. Like, that has been their guy the last couple of years. And I think only 42% snaps before the bye. It's still 10 red zone touches. Like, if that's up there and it's 60%, I think we're going to see a much expanded workload here.
Yep. I was looking at this too. I'm not going to lie. And I think this is not a laterable moment. I wouldn't start going crazy with Nick Chubb. I wouldn't start assuming also that he's going to have a good game today and then that means he's back for the rest of the season. I don't think that we're there yet. I think next year we'll all be looking at Chubb and going like, oh, there he is. There's the dude that we remember. And this year it's going to be a lot of working his way back into it. But with this matchup, this situation, you just got to blindly take these running backs against this Saints defense right now. It's just so bad defending the run to the point that you're making. So, and they're going to need more help against the pass as well, with obviously with Lattimore out and on a different team now. So let me go to my first play here. You might have remembered this man as a friend of the show the last 4 weeks, Jorge Pickens, or George Pickens as he's more fondly known in Pittsburgh. God, I love that man. I mean, it's partly because he's on my fantasy team, but it's just like he's been unrealized up until he got a good deep ball quarterback in Russell Wilson. What are the odds? So I like him at over 65.5 receiving yards. I do like the yards a little bit more. The receptions are beatable at 4.5. He's gotten 5 in 2 games, 2 of the 3 with Russ. So it makes sense that he would be able to do that again against the Ravens defense. I don't know if you heard, they're really bad at pass defense, are the Ravens. It's all we've been talking about all season. And it's all we will talk about because they're a great team with a bad defense. But right now, for George, like, this is just continue to rise. I think this is still the same number basically as last week for him against an actually worse defense against the pass in the Ravens than the Washington Commanders were last week, which we saw come to fruition with 95 yards for George. But yeah, I mean, looking into his stuff, he's sixth in the NFL in air yards. He was in the top 5 in unrealized air yards until Russell Wilson came around. And now we're talking about the last 3 games. He's fourth in red zone targets, by the way, as well. And that's been a thing with Russ, is like Russ has been looking for him. He's got now 4 targets inside the red zone in 3 games with Russell Wilson. Love that for him. And we know he doesn't need to get into the, doesn't need to be 20 yards away to get into the end zone with the deep ball threat that he is. 6th in deep ball targets as well, I should mention. And once again, with a guy like Justin Fields, that was tough to come by in catches. But the 3 games with Russ, 5 receptions per game, 92 yards per game. That's really good as well. I think he's going to get, be on at least the brink of another 100-yarder in that one. And it did look like, watching that game last week, like it did look like Mike Williams opened up the middle for Pickens. He had 3 catches off of either slant route or in post route. And it really seemed to the middle of the field was more open than I'd ever seen it. Right. Cause it's usually either Calvin Austin flying down the slot on a go route, Finn and end of offense, or Pat Fryermuth on a short, crossing route. Like there wasn't much going on there. So Mike Williams was a legit good pickup. If nothing else, it keeps the safeties and the corners at least tied to the other side of the field a little bit more than it otherwise would have, where they were able to cheat into the middle in case Pickens wanted to slant, across the middle without too much help from the safeties there. And I don't think we're going to see enough help from the safeties again from the Ravens like we have all season. So I'm going to go ahead and just feel really good about him. I think the touchdown still close to plus 165 for him is a decent number. We got it at better than 2-1 last week, and I hit that with you guys. So let's keep riding the Pickens train here.
Yeah, he's come through every time. I mean, this Ravens secondary struggling. It's also the game flow, right? That just they're going to have a lead usually, and then the other team is going to be slinging it. Like Pittsburgh can't just ground the ball here. Pickens has gone for 21.5 yards per catch in his career against the Ravens. Shut out the last time he was in Baltimore, but I mean, this is a different situation in terms of how those corners are playing now. And the new defensive coordinator, Zach Orr, struggling to get his guys in the right spot. So I like their receptions as well, even though he has been like a big play guy, but he's probably going to get both because he's come through for us every time.
Yeah.
Let me take under in Chicago. DeAndre Swift under 68.5 rush yards at Caesars. I mean, it's 67 or 69 at different books. Get the best number you can. Use that player props tool to find it. But the point is, like, I think Green Bay struggles, but they mostly struggle on the ground against like power runners, like what we saw Joe Mixon, even Tank Bigsby, Saquon at the beginning of the season, can truck this defense. But my thesis, I couldn't find really a speed guy like Swift this season that has played the Packers. But when he played them, when he was on the Lions, he averaged just 23 rushing yards per game, routinely almost doubled that as a receiver. And now we have a new offensive coordinator coming in there for the Bears, Thomas Brown, former passing game coordinator, former tight end coach under Sean McVay. What are his principles going to be? Is he going to say, look, we need to establish more of a power running game? Maybe we need to give Roschon Johnson a look, because Swift is not a power runner, as we know. And the stats really reflect that. When there's 7 guys in the box, he's at 2.8 yards per carry, 1.5 if there's 8 in the box. His true yards per carry on the season is only 3.7. He's got to break a big play, and Packers coming off a bye should be pretty disciplined. They've seen him before. Like I said, they kind of shut down Chicago's offense altogether in 2 meetings last season, helped them to 192 total yards last time out. Question marks with the Bears offensive line again. They might get their tackle back, Darnell Wright, but the left guard, Tevin Jenkins, is out, and his backup posted a 34 grade last week. PFF now grade drops them to 31st as an offensive line unit after they couldn't get anything done against the Patriots. So yeah, just not a lot to like in terms of game script either. Like, will the Bears be ahead in this game at any point? I really doubt it. And then the uncertainty with the new OC means we might see a completely different role for Swift.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't call him like a soft runner. If he actually is able to make contact correctly as he's trying to like barrel over guys, he's so freaking strong, dude. Like he's so strong. I just want to make that clear that DeAndre Swift is a wildly strong man who has the vision, right, of a horse running down the racetrack with blinders on, essentially. Like he just cannot cut to the right spot. He doesn't follow his blockers correctly. That would be why if you stack the box and you don't give him space to work with, despite looking like Tarzan, it might not be really coming out with the strong runs in that situation. Much better running to the outside and getting into space, to your point, because he also happens to be super fast. But let me get to my second pick here. I'm going to go with an under for Kirk Cousins, for Captain Kirk. Yeah, gotta fade him in this situation. There's a lot of good stuff that you pointed out as well for Kirk in this spot against Denver. So I mean, we all know how good Denver's defense is, their pass defense specifically, and their run defense has been good, but their pass defense with that pass rush combined with those corners, man, they've looked awesome for sure. And I think we'll continue to see that. Kirk Cousins 0-5 this season against this number in non-division games. So, I mean, that's not even just like a familiarity thing. That's like the defenses in your division suck. So that's why you're able to beat them up so bad. What happens when you step outside into the real world, my man, and start playing some real defenses not known as the Saints and the Falcons and, the Panthers. So if you look at him over the last 2 seasons, another really interesting part is going to be indoor Kirk versus outdoor Kirk. And he had obviously the luxury of playing indoors in Minnesota and has the luxury of playing indoors in Atlanta. So we have a similar situation, but he's averaging 50 fewer yards per game when he doesn't get that roof over his head versus when he has it. And you compare that with Denver's ability to just limit everything, 192 yards passing per game. It's not like we're asking him to get 195 or 200 yards. He needs to get close to 250 for it to get over this number. And it's just not a number that you're going to hit very often against a Denver team that, like I mentioned, 4th in sack percentage, number 1 in yards per play allowed, because that run defense is also very good. And we've seen the Falcons try to run it a lot more. It almost seems like the response to the constant debate between Algier and Bijan, which, by the way, the only debate going on there is in the Falcons locker room. I think most of the world is going, could you just give it to Bijan 20 times a game? But they're giving it to both of them, and they're running it a lot more as a result, up to 7th in rush play rate over the last 3 games. And on the road, seems to be the tactic as well. Run the ball a little bit more. 49% pass play percentage on the road. So they're not passing very much at all. A much heavier run script there. And Surtain is going to be just draked all over London. Drake, you get what I'm saying. There's a pun there. He's going to be draked all over London because Drake London has been the dude for them, and Darnell Mooney is questionable as well right now. But even if Mooney comes out there, we're talking about Riley Moss, who's 11th in separation rate right now, just 1.1 yards per route that he's allowing the separation there between he and his defender. So yeah, there's going to be it's going to be tough to come by. I guess maybe you like some Kyle Pitts stuff on like a couple of deep routes, but they're still very good against tight ends as well in that pass game. It's going to be tough for them to find those yards. I think Kirk's probably much closer to like 215, 220 in this one at the most.
Yeah, that's where the line should be, right? I mean, this is just off after the Broncos played Lamar and Patrick Mahomes, guys who can extend plays, get the
Right.
ball down the field. And so their numbers would be even better than this in terms of limiting explosives before they played those guys. I mean, granted, it was against a very soft schedule, but Kirk Cousins is not, in any way the same kind of talent. He's on the injury report with multiple issues. If he gets sacked a couple times here, I don't know. Maybe he has to tap out of this game
Yeah.
at some point. But like you're saying, Atlanta's been running the ball a little bit more. They have been giving Bijan the ball 20 times and targeting him.
Yeah.
And so they're going to try to protect Kirk, I think, on the road. Maybe a few snow flurries in this game. But Denver's defense is a little more beatable on the ground than they are against, Surtain and them boys who, can lock up their top options either way. So let's go out to the game of the week.
Yeah.
Buffalo. I'll take Travis Kelce over 65.5 receiving yards.
Good.
He's been going off since
Yeah.
the slow start of the season. He said he was going to kind of ease into it. Then they
Right.
lost like 3 key guys, and Mahomes has just been looking for him all the time. I'll just exclude the game against Fred Warner, who is amazing, the best linebacker in the game. And, Kelsey still had a pretty good game against him, but in 4 of his last 5, he's gone for 50 targets, caught 41 of those, and pretty much been at this number or over it. He was 1 short of this number against Denver last week in a very knockdown, drag out divisional game.
Yeah.
He has had success against Buffalo, though, including in the playoffs. And that's just the way the Bills play defense. They have the 10th highest zone rate. Kelsey just sits into those spots. They have a freaking mind meld, him and Mahomes. He's just going to find it, sit down, get these first downs. Buffalo has allowed the 5th most first downs through the air, 120 on the season. Matt Milano, his practice window's open, but he's still not going to be back here for the Bills. Their linebackers are much more beatable than their corners, who will be all over DeAndre Hopkins, I think. And just the presence of Hopkins, though, has allowed Kelsey to kind of get down the field a little bit more. Those two guys, him and Worthy, threatening defenses at least. He now leads all tight ends in targets and air yards percentage after, again, the very slow start. But if you think he's going to come out in a big game like this and not produce with Tay in the box, like I don't see that happening.
Yeah, you're crazy. You're definitely crazy if you think that. I totally agree with Kelsey. And like, look, like everybody was worried about him at the beginning of the season, like he's over the hill, and it's like, come on, man. Like, no, he's not over the hill at this point. I mean, he had a pretty busy offseason, I will say. If he's talking about slowly getting back into it, it was commercials and flight, whatever, right? Like he was doing stuff in the offseason. Then and they also had weapons, if you'll remember, at the beginning of the offseason. I don't know if you guys remember Rashi Rice, who was an awesome wide receiver, not to mention everybody else, Juju Smith-Schuster, the list goes on. So also their starting running back, Isaiah Pacheco, maybe you've heard of him. All those guys still missing. Yeah, Hopkins actually has been super helpful to come in, similar to the impact that Mike Williams has had on Jorge Pickens. But let's close it out here with JT, Jonathan Taylor. I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm just going to go anytime touchdown in this matchup against the Jets defense. Like the Jets gave up, right? We all agree the Jets gave up. I mean, Aaron Rodgers seems to have given up, sulky baby that he is. But if you look at Jonathan Taylor, there's real no threat. Like Trey Sermon, man, I wish he was a lot better, but so far not really that proud of him when JT has been out. So I don't really. There's just no threat to his opportunity share, to his rushing share. 87% on the season, which leads all running backs, which just tells you when he's healthy, they don't really need anybody else to come in other than maybe for a couple of drives a game, right? Other than that, he's a 3-down back and is out there for all of it. We got Ant Richardson back, which should be helpful for the run offense. To be honest, like you are able to keep the defense on its toes when you've got two guys that you're afraid of running the ball out of the backfield. And it's something they've done a lot better this year than that pass game, especially with Ant out there. We know the accuracy issues, whether it's deep balls or especially not even in the deep ball area. But I think when you talk about Ant being in there, though, like what are his opportunities to throw the ball short? That's what we're saying here. Like if he's not going to be an accurate short passer in tight windows, how do you expect him to score once this team gets inside the red zone through the air? It's a lot less likely. That's why I would think you would continue to get the ball into Jonathan Taylor's hands inside the red zone and really anywhere that you are. Obviously, goal line situations are going to be the same concept. And this Jets defense is just not a good run defense. It's a good pass defense and a bad run defense, essentially, allowing 7 rush TDs over the last 3 games. You look at their EPA, their versus the rush in those last 3 games, and really just since Robert Saleh went down, that obviously wasn't going to help the defense to have Saleh no longer on the sideline. That was the one sort of positive attribute that he was bringing. And in that time frame, they're back down to the bottom 13 in terms of rush EPA defense, which is just not something that you expect from a team that was built to suffocate things up front and then put a complete stranglehold on it with the DBs in the backfield. Just doesn't seem like there's much life left in them. So this game script could also be a little bit more positive for the Colts than maybe would have otherwise been imagined when this first matchup was announced, right? At this point of the season, you're like, okay, Colts, we'll see what's up with them, but the Jets should be rolling by that point in time with a fully healthy Breece Hall, fully healthy Aaron Rodgers, and it just ain't the case right now. I think this Colts team is going to be happy to slow down that pace of play, keep it in Jonathan Taylor's hands, and he'll be finishing off some of these drives.
Yeah, there's probably going to be fewer pass attempts for sure with Ant Richardson out there than Flacco. But even with Flacco out there, I mean, Taylor's been like 100 yards. He's been like over 5 yards per carry the last few in losses, in 3 straight losses. So, I mean, I think there's a parlay opportunity here as well for 60 plus in the touchdown. His core line's like 85 because he's been so hot lately. I don't know if the Jets will quit to that degree that they give up 100, but it's certainly it's about 50-50 to me that they bounce back or that they call it a day because it was an embarrassing effort last week. It's been pretty embarrassing most of the season for these Jets. Let me wrap up with just a fun little bonus bet. If you want to get some action on this Titans-Vikings game, I think maybe the best look is Will Levis 14.5 rush yards. Like, I was looking at Calvin Ridley, but he gets Stephon Gilmore, who's just still fantastic. But yeah, I mean, the Vikings are going to come after this dude. They're going to force him into some mistakes. They're going to confuse him a lot because let's face it, he's not the brightest quarterback in the league. So I think if he sees things he doesn't really understand from the defense, he's just going to take off. And he is very athletic. He can lean on that athleticism. He's gone 3 to 5 rush attempts in every full start this season and averaged 28.5 per game, including 41 against the Chargers last week. And that's important because the Chargers do sit back in a lot of zone. and the Vikings have the highest zone rate. And that's why this number is so low. And it's also so low because they've allowed the fewest raw attempts and yards to quarterbacks this season, but 6 straight against non-rushers or injured guys, like including Jordan Love's first game off injury. Then they confused Purdy, they confused Stroud at the beginning of the season. But hey, by the way, your guy Daniel Jones, 15 yards. So similar situation, I guess, for Levis. So I just think he can get to 15, which he's done in 3 of 4 of his full starts this season.
I like this pick. I like this pick. I actually like Calvin Ridley in this game. I actually like the Titans to cover. I don't know how this got to 6, but
Yeah,
I
because
don't.
Darnold is turning into a pumpkin. Yeah.
It's midnight, baby. It's midnight in Minnesota, and Sam Darnold's turning orange and round again. He kind of already was orange and round, but now he's going to be even more orange and round like a pumpkin. So I totally agree. This is a sneaky good upset pick as well for them. I think a little sprinkle on a money line play as well might be worth it with Tennessee here. But that is all the time we have for you in this one. Nice little bonus pick with the Will Levis. I do like that one as well. To your point, I think he's run the ball 4 or 5 times, and this one should be able to get 15. We're going to be back obviously next week and moving along the rest of the season. So definitely make sure to subscribe to that page. Don't miss any of the other NFL content that we have up for you guys for this week 11 slate. Until we see you next, happy betting.